Hello and welcome to the Orthodox View, where we discuss the latest religious news from an Orthodox Christian perspective. I am its host, Philip Champion. The South African Council of Churches welcomes the Russian Orthodox Church's decision to establish a patriarchal exarchate in Africa. This was announced by its Secretary General, Bishop Malusi Mupulwana. The South African Council of Churches is an inter-Christian forum in the Republic of South Africa, which includes the Orthodox Church of Alexandria, the Coptic Church, and a number of Protestant denominations. The head of the Council of Churches has expressed his readiness to assist the exarchate of the Russian Orthodox Church. Moreover, he made a suggestion where exactly the exarchate's headquarters could be located. He believes that the South African province of Gauteng, where Johannesburg and Pretoria are located, is the best place to host the Russian Orthodox Church's patriarchal exarchate in Africa. The actual place for the exarchate's headquarters will be decided by the Moscow Patriarchate. The Russian Orthodox Church is also planning to give future priests in Africa the opportunity to study at the theological educational institutions of the Moscow Patriarchate. His Holiness Patriarch Kirill of Moscow and all Russia has already blessed the creation of appropriate quotas. Thousands of German believers have renounced their membership in the church because of the religious tax. What is this tax? Well, for example, Christian and Jews in Germany must pay a mandatory additional tax of 8 to 9% of their salary. The payment is referred to as a worship tax or church tax, and the collected funds go to the religious institutions under which people were registered in their youth. It is believed that Catholic and Protestant churches in Germany were awarded 12 million euros, that's more than 10 million pounds, in 2020. But the number of people leaving faith is huge. Over 500,000 German people left the church in 2019, with a third of believers considering leaving the church due to the fees, according to a 2021 report. However, some religious groups are exempt from the tax, including the Orthodox Christians, Buddhists, and Muslims. Similar processes are taking place in Austria, Denmark, and Italy. There are even instructions on the internet on how to leave the church. For a certain cost, people are offered assistance in collecting documents and legally securing their new status. The head of the so-called Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Kiev Patriarchate, Filaret Denisenko, has submitted an application to renew the registration of his organization with the District Administrative Court of Kiev. If he succeeds, that will mean that most of the schismatic priests and bishops from the so-called Kiev Patriarchate will legally separate from the schismatics from the so-called Orthodox Church of Ukraine. It is remarkable that Filaret Denisenko, who used to be the canonical Metropolitan of Kiev and was later defrocked and excommunicated by the Russian Church, was one of the instigators of the schism in Ukraine. It was him who initiated the creation of the Orthodox Church of Ukraine, hoping to become its patriarch. Since then, Filaret Denisenko has many times criticized the Thomas of Autocephaly issued by Constantinople. He is calling it a deception, since the newly founded Orthodox Church of Ukraine is very much dependent on the Church of Constantinople, and thus has less autonomy than the canonical Ukrainian Orthodox Church. Now, when it became clear that the so-called Orthodox Church of Ukraine had become the metropolis of the Patriarchate of Constantinople, Filaret decided to turn back the clock and regain his ecclesiastical authority within the framework of the former schismatic structure of the Kiev Patriarchate that he created in 1992 after leaving the Russian Church. Let me remind you that after Filaret Denisenko had been excommunicated by the Russian Orthodox Church, his excommunication was accepted and recognized by all local Orthodox churches, including the Church of Constantinople. Several times Filaret Denisenko appealed to Patriarch Bartholomew with a request to invalidate the anathema placed against him by the Russian Orthodox Church. All of those appeals were rejected. For instance, here's what Patriarch Bartholomew wrote to the Patriarch of Moscow in 1992. In reply to the corresponding telegrams and the letter of your beloved and esteemed beatitude regarding the problem that has arisen within the sister church of Russia, which have caused the Holy Synod for well-known reasons to depose the until recently leading member of the Synod, the Metropolitan of Kiev, Vladika Filaret, we desire fraternally to inform your Holiness that our holy and great Church of Christ in recognizing the fullness of the competence of your Holy Russian Church in this issue, will take a decision on the level of the Synod on the aforementioned without wishing to create any difficulties for your sister church. It was only in 2018, after the appeal of the Ukrainian President Pyotr Poroshenko, that Patriarch Bartholomew had lifted the anathema against Filaret Denisenko. Now, however, Filaret is creating yet another schismatic church, and Patriarch Bartholomew tends to pretend that nothing is in fact happening. A well-known magazine in architecture called Gallery has unveiled a list of 9 most anticipated architectural projects to be completed this year. Among them is the Orthodox Church of St. Nicholas in New York City. It is being built on the site of a 19th century church destroyed in the September 11 attacks. The project's architect is the famous Spanish artist Santiago Calatrava. The construction began in 2015. The church is built from white pentelic stone and features translucent cutouts that emit a certain glow at night. The overall design was inspired by Byzantine churches, in particular Istanbul's Hagia Sophia, and Calatrava even matched the number of ribs in Hagia Sophia's landmark's dome with the ribs in St. Nicholas. In April of this year, the church will open its gate to first visitors. In his rhetoric, Patriarch Bartholomew of Constantinople often draws an analogy between the schism in Ukraine and the situation with the Russian Orthodox Church abroad in the 20th century. The rector of the Kiev Theological Academy, Bishop Sylvester of Belgorod, wrote an article in which he explained why the case of the reunification of the Russian Church and the Russian Orthodox Church abroad is not applicable in Ukraine. The first difference is that the schism in Ukraine arose as a result of the self-proclaimed autocephaly, while the Russian Orthodox Church abroad always proclaimed that it is a part of the Russian Church. The second difference is that the Russian Orthodox Church and the Russian Orthodox Church abroad have always recognized the legitimacy of each other's consecrations. Finally, the third difference is that all the local churches until 2018 were united in their non-recognition of the Ukrainian schismatics, while the clergy of the Russian Orthodox Church abroad were always recognized in world orthodoxy. Therefore, any analogy between the two cases is simply false. Well, this is all for today. Thank you for watching, and see you next time on The Orthodox View.